Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to Creating Space. I'm Andrea, and usually I host once a month to feature guests connected with the arts, culture, and community sphere. So for tonight, in celebration of the National Arts Month, we have invited a global Filipina artist. So she made her debut into the Manila music scene at age 17 as a singer keyboardist. And at age 18, she formed her first jazz fusion band, the Jireh Calo project, and went on to receive critical acclaim from audiences and critics alike in both the indie and jazz scene. In 2014, she won the Boy Katindig Jazz competition and represented the Philippines at the World Youth Jazz Festival in Manila and released her self-titled debut EP produced by Paolo Garcia. She also finished summa cum laude from the Berklee College of Music and Berklee Global Jazz Institute in Boston. And releasing her second EP, Solid Ground, in 2017, she was also nominated for both International and Jazz Artist of the Year at the BMAs. So good. Please, everyone, let help me welcome our guest, Jireh Calo. Hi,
Hello,
Jireh.
kamusta? Hi, Amy. Andrea,
Grabe.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you for saying yes to our invitation. Parang medyo hiningal ako doon. Grabe, you're so amazing.
Mm.
Usually we only give a parang one paragraph bio, pero para sa amin nahirapan kaming mag-trim down ng bio mo. Parang lahat talaga pa. Sobrang amazing. So, yeah, but tonight we're going to hear more about your journey, and our theme and topic for tonight is actually reclaiming our roots through ancestral arts. And later on, we'll talk more about the ancestral arts and your experience in reclaiming your roots by learning more about that. But before we dive into the topic, let's backtrack a bit, no? In your Boston Voyager interview, you mentioned that you never felt the pressure to be or sound like anything. So, because you had no formal music training growing up, no? In your interview with Inquirer, you also expressed how you felt drawn to jazz because you love the freedom and irregularity of the music. So, freedom and that constant pursuit of growth seem to be the two major themes that describe your journey. Given that, do you still experience doubts and fears along the way? And if so, how do you go back to that state of having deep faith and trust in your inner compass, so to speak?
Wow. Well, to the question, if do I still experience doubts and fears? Definitely. I
Mhm.
think what you get better at over the years is just the practice of processing it and dealing with it. And when I was younger, it was in a form of prayer. So I would have this conversation, yes, to God. And I think also over the years, I also developed that conversation more as a constant thing with myself. So I've actually developed the habit of having conversations with myself. And as I'm experiencing not just difficulties, I think if you are able to practice that, even when things are going
Mhm.
okay, it becomes easier when things do get difficult. So it's like being your best friend. So I've developed this practice of, if I'm going through something, I would talk to myself the way I would want a friend to talk to me and encourage me and comfort me in those times. And like music, the more you practice, the
Mhm.
better you get at it, and so you don't get stuck for too long, or you don't wallow for too long. And I think that's been kind of like a meditation and prayer for me, just having healthy conversations in my mind.
Wow, that's super awesome. I mean, it really is important to always have that conversation internally, with yourself, and of course with a higher source, with God. And I love what you mentioned about it being um, like music. It takes practice, and it's like
Yeah,
talking to your best friend. So you really need to have your back in these kinds of
yeah,
instances when you, because it seems like you've really um, pursued what you really wanted to do. So that takes a lot of guts and faith, like a strong faith
Yeah,
that you can really do it no matter what.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so having had these amazing experiences and accomplishments at such a young age, um, a lot of in your interviews, I saw that you mentioned you're actually more proud of how you've overcome more than the accomplishments that you've had or you've collected over the past years. And in your song, Dugong Maharlika, you know, one phrase really struck me very deeply. And you said in this song, akala mo ba na dito lang ang abot ng Pilipino? Akala mo ba na dito lang ang abot ng boses ko? Sino ba ang nagsabi na kahirapan ang nararapat sa atin? Sino ba ang nagtangka na palubugin ang angkan natin? Pero ang katotohanan ay lahat tayo ay nagtataglay ng dugong maharlika. So, I feel that you truly embodied this throughout your journey. No, it really
Yeah.
all throughout all the successes you've achieved and having walked the territory, so to speak. What exactly does it mean for you to embody this? Sa papaanong paraan na ipapamalas ng isang tao na taglay niya ang dugong maharlika?
I mean, I think for me, music is not separate from life. Eh. So everything I sing or I choose to write or I choose to arrange resonates with me first. And actually, Dugong Maharlika, which means noble blood, was written by my sister, and I was like, oh, that's so powerful. Like I feel that I wanna rearrange that. So si ate yung nagsulat nun. And the songs for me, they are usually reminders to myself, pieces of truths and wisdom that I want to carry, stories I want to remember. Um, so for me, that is the role that music plays in my life. You know, there's a lot of, you know, different things that I pursue for that, and music is just one of those forms. So hindi siya separate. Eh. So for me, I really focus on like being present and living life as present as I can, because when I'm in a creative process or what they call the flow, parang dun na siya lalabas, you know. And I'm the type of artist na when I write my own music, talagang personal siya. Um, and so when it comes to like how do I kind of live that yung idea of embodying Dugong Maharlika, it ties a lot to my journey of like seeking to know oneself and digging deeper into my own roots. So yung context ko, I grew up in the Philippines. I spent the first 18 years of my life. Oh, wait, 19 ba? Yeah, I think 19 I left. 19 years of my life in Manila. I grew up in, you know, in the city. And then I went abroad, totally new environment. You're exposed to so many different cultures. I was in Berklee College of Music. So, you know, that's even just in that school alone, it's like a melting pot of all these different cultures. Um, and I experienced what a lot of Filipinos experience, which is like you kind of look at yourself among the diversity and you be like, sino ako? Who am I in this global world? And I think that's something that was very new to me, and you don't really experience it as much when you're in the same environment for a long time. It's really when you go to a different place, different people, different culture, and then you get to also not just like dig in deeper to like who are you, you also get to redefine it. So for me it was that journey of like going into my roots, understanding my history, understanding what it means to be Filipino. Even just the term Filipino, you know, carries a lot of history and weight in context. And then kind of putting myself and seeing my present and being like, hey, I get to redefine my who I am. I get to live and breathe my own history because I am Filipina. I am continuing this legacy by being. And so as human beings, we all have that power and potential to, you know, once we understand who we are, like redirect it in moving forward, especially in this globalized time. You know, you can't look at yourself in a vacuum. It's like you're surrounded by so much. And for me, I found a lot more things that I share with other cultures. You know, it's almost like the deeper you go, the more interconnection you see, right? So it goes hand in hand with appreciating your own culture in context of appreciating other cultures as well.
Wow, great. So actually, for those who are not familiar with Jaira's journey, um, I read, no, I've been reading a lot about you recently, the
Nag-research
past
ka
days.
talaga.
Na, so, and so, sobrang amazing kasi, for example, when you went for your audition in Hong Kong, it was like your mom was the one who supported you for that, or partly her and then you. And then actually you had to defer for 1 year because you had to save up for your tuition fee. And when you went to the US, what you used for the down payment and the initial fees were just a whole year's savings from your gigs and your first EP. So it was really like, ano talaga eh, trust. Alam mo yung
Yeah.
talon lang. Sige
Yeah,
lang,
it's
may
it's
darating.
exactly. I think for me, parang talagang like I say, it's a practice because it's action. You
Mm-mm.
can believe a certain way and you can like have these big dreams. Pero what a lot of
Mm.
people actually don't see, and which is why I make it a point to share it. Because
Exactly.
it's not just the accomplishments and the success and the degree and the awards. Because for me, it's that's not the part, that's not the biggest part for me. It's just like the everyday na, how am I gonna handle this, what when I'm faced with difficult decisions, how am I gonna choose, you know, and am I gonna give up, am I gonna try again, am I gonna get discouraged. Yun yung journey that I really value, because that's where I really grow. And I'm pretty open about it during interviews too, because for me that is what I want to share. And if anyone like listens to my music or hears me, I would hope that they also hear the story behind it, because I feel like there's so much that that goes unsaid. I feel like so. Parang yun yung pinaka important for me.
That's
Yun
true
yung
because
journey.
you oftentimes no when we see successful individuals, we don't quite see what went through behind the scenes for
Yeah.
for example, for someone like you to get where you are at now. So it's, and then um during your time there, you also mentioned that you had to be really vulnerable and to share your story. And then that's how an entire community helped you out up to the time you graduated your music degree and your master's. So can you tell us more about that entire experience and just being with Filipinos abroad and Phil-Amps abroad, because there's also a lot of nuances and unique internal
Yeah.
conflicts that students, Filipinos studying abroad and Phil-Amps are actually going through. And yeah,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, I mean that's all connected. So for me, it was like, because when I moved, I basically had to rebuild my community. I didn't really know anyone there when I
mhm.
arrived, and I got to connected with the church community, with the Filipino community through Escuelang Filipino, and that was kind of like the support system I had. Which was so important because when I was studying and working part time, and I couldn't possibly afford rent, so I was living with different families, different people, while studying. And then every semester was like, how am I going to do this? You know, I had to really humble myself, and also you know, be open with people. Like, this is what I'm going for. These are my intentions, and I'm determined, I'm motivated, and but I can't do it by myself. And then there was a point, specific point, where I felt na I had to give up na. This is as far as I can go. I have to wala na. I have to go back home and di bale na I can't finish. And then I just had to like really rethink my perspective na if you're thinking about material things, what you don't have. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this, that. That becomes your reality, and you make decisions based on that. And so I had to like rethink. That's like, wait, what do I have, right? What is it that I have? And it doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. And that's actually where like the gifts are and the blessings are, if we're able to see that perspective. So I have community. I have people who support me. I have people who love me and believe in me. And I've gotten this far. It doesn't make sense that I'm gonna just give up at this point. So parang I really had to like kind of like write the story like, no, that's not how I want this to end. Like I wanna like, and like, what's the worst thing that happens? It doesn't work out. So for me, I'm like, I reconcile with the worst things that could happen and be like, you know what, diba, and I'm just gonna go for it. So I launched this whole fundraising campaign, U.S. and in the Philippines. People were helping me in both sides of the world. People I was able to record an EP through a producer who produced it for free. Like my church helped me put together a concert, and it was like a really successful fundraising concert. And it was also a beautiful way to see na it's an exchange, because when you put yourself in that position, you are letting people into the journey. You're letting people not just experience the success, you're letting them walk with you. And that was so touching for me and such a valuable lesson, because that's where you really build community, you walking together. And you also appreciate how you get to places. You can't do things on your own. We're not meant to be sarili-sarili lang. Those were really important lessons for me. So parang life teaches you the lessons you need to learn. So I take that with me, those experiences, and I share it, hopefully to encourage people. Now, when you're in that situation, like sometimes it's just a shift of perspective, and looking what you do have, and there's so much abundance around us.
So instead of giving up and succumbing to the fear and doubts, you chose to write your story. Really um, take hold of your future. And you mentioned that you had that question of who am I in this global world. So
Mm.
let's go to that, because as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about that too, no, kanina. A
Yeah.
lot of PhilAms um, and Filipino students living abroad encounter, sorry, this difficulty in terms of, in terms of identity. They're neither, for example, PhilAms are neither, I'm neither an American full 100% or a Filipino, because when I'm with the Americans, they would see that I don't look like them, and if I'm in the Philippines, they would see how different I am from them. So, what was your experience journeying with these um, people or communities who are having this similar internal questions or conflicts?
Yeah, I mean, the first few years, aside from the Filipino community outside of school, I found myself actually very konti lang yung mga Pinoy sa Boston, at least within my school or my circle. So it was really like outside of school that I got to meet them. But the ones that I did meet, a lot of them had grown up there, or second generation, third generation. And then there were a few na from the Philippines then. And I mean, I think I can mainly share from my own experiences and observations, because I can't guess na that's what everyone feels. But I would want to guess na it's almost like you're. This is what I feel sometimes. There's like a duality of realities, because the reality in the Philippines, especially if you grew up here, very different when you're abroad. It's almost like, and you also have to adapt, right? So when you're in the Philippines, I adapt. to like my Philippine self. So, kumbaga. And then when I'm in the US, I'm still myself in those situations, but you have to adapt to the environment. And so you kind of develop this parang multiplicity of yourself. Um, and I think that is that, like wherever you are, you and whoever your circles are, you kind of relate to them in those different levels. And so for me as a Filipina, I actually embraced it more because it's like a reference point from which to engage with other people from other cultures. And it's a beautiful way, I think, to connect. Saying like, this is who I am, this is where I come from, these are my experiences, what are yours? Like, oh, it's different, that's cool. Like, oh, what are some similarities? Oh, you want to taste my food? Oh, this is what I cook. Or like, "Ah, what's that from?" Parang it's like a reference point na you can embrace more when it's in a place where everyone's different. And that's my experience. So I'm sure every Filipino has a different experience. But what I do notice in common is that there is a heightened sense of being Filipino, and so you kind of want to dig into, well, what does that mean? Because sometimes we can blend into being like Latino, we can blend into being Indonesian, Southeast Asian. So, it's like we're very adaptable as Filipinos. We're everywhere, and we have that ability, which I think is awesome. And I think that's part of who we are. It's like we are so globalized. The sense of being Filipino at this point is in itself a mix of so many different influences. Even just our food. Look at our food. There's Spanish, there's Chinese, there's indigenous, and even just the way we dress and talk. So for me, it's not about like being like ito lang ako, like this is, it's more looking at the lens of like what we've journeyed through as a people, also the diaspora, the fact yung daming OFWs, and so that is also part of who we are. And I think when we embrace it, then it doesn't have to be so much of a battle. It's more of like it's more empowering, I guess, because then you'd be like, well, I get to redefine it and shape it and be who am I, aside from like race and all of that. Because sometimes it can be hyper, that can be like the elevated identity when you're looking at different cultures. And for me, I like connecting with people just also as fellow human beings, so kind of going past all the divides and seeing differences and more connecting with like the shared humanity. At least that's how I've navigated it.
That's awesome. No, it's a reframe because instead of focusing on what's the differences, you embraced all the varying aspects of your identity. No, that's
Yeah.
very global. I mean, you're a global Filipina, so it characterizes the current trend in globalization. Jumping off from what you mentioned about heightened identity, for example, as a Filipino, because um, of course, when you meet someone, they ask about where's the Philippines, or what is it, or who is a Filipino, no? Um, you've also been doing a lot of immersions, learning more about our culture and immersions with indigenous communities around the Philippines, even prior to the lockdowns and pandemic. And you've been learning various forms of ancestral art from cultural masters. So,
Yeah.
could you recall a specific experience that sparked your journey of reclaiming your roots?
I mean, I think it started. I could trace it back to like before I even left, but I think the where I was hyper aware of it was when I was in the U.S. And so the next time I visited the Philippines, which was like after 4 years of not being able to go home, I made it a point to visit um, down in Mindanao. So I got to visit the Tiboli tribe. There was a Tiboli School of Living Traditions, and I was able to go and they showed me some dances and some rhythms on the different instruments and the gongs and the drums. And I even got to dance with one of the songs that they were doing. And I was just there for a day, and I feel like for me it wasn't like, oh, I got this, alam ko na. It's more like, look at how much there is to learn. And so I feel like the more you explore, the more you uncover, oh, ang dami pala na pwedeng alamin. So, and then that kind of sparked the journey. It inspired me to like, I want to learn more. I want to do more. And then, syempre, the next time I came back, pandemic. So when the opportunity came to be part of Tao Foundation's Himig Minuno together with Grace Nono, which is basically an effort to be able to kind of bridge that gap of where if somebody wants to learn uh, from cultural masters directly, this is like a platform to do it. And so I was able to kind of work with the admin, the core group of Himig Minuno. Well, we now call it Himig at Galaw Ninuno because we have music and dance. Um, and it's been really an honor to work behind the scenes, but also be a student. Um, and so last year I got to study with Guro Karatuan Kalanduyan on the Kutyapi. It's dark, but it's right there. From Maguindanaon. So we did just Zoom lessons, and I got to learn the Mamayog, and then I got to the Binalig. And so we're doing that again this year, but we're now offering Kutyapi and Kulintang, the gongs, Maguindanao, and then the Yakan Pansak, which is the dance. So it's been really interesting. Ayan, yeah, there are the posters. Ayan, Kutyapi, Kulintang, Yakan Pansak. And it's really cool because ang dami palang gustong matuto. So you get to meet other people and Filipinos and non-Filipinos around the world who are really interested in this. And so it's almost like you're building a community, and it's really great also opportunity for these cultural masters to be able to share their knowledge because it's like these are things that parang it's you won't find it in a book. You're not gonna find like it's not documented in the same way where parang notation and stuff like that. It's really oral tradition, so you gotta really like learn directly from them and understand the context and the history, and have if you have specific questions. And so it's kind of developed now where I'm really honored to be part of this, I'd say, like a movement of people who are making the effort to make this knowledge more accessible to more people. So yun.
So you were talking about your course last year, no, February, with Guro Karatuan Kalanduyan from Maguindanao. How was your experience? What were the unique aspects you noticed in comparison to formal music training? And I mean, all the other trainings you've gone through in general.
It was really the way we learned the song. So the first one that we learned was the Mamayog. Is really
Mm,
memorization and mastery. So
mhm.
it wasn't notated, and it's not always played the same exact way. So you're really learning the
Yes.
language of the music, the rhythm, the flow, and then from there you can even improvise. But you really gotta master. So it's based on mastery, and the way that Guru Karatoan taught us was the way that he learned it. So this is like the legacy of oral tradition. Like, and he was talking about how he grew up listening to his parents play it, so he really absorbed it,
Yes.
and then to pass that on. And also, what's really beautiful is the conversation. So it's really a dialogue. Students ask questions, and then answers, and it's back and forth, and because if you won't really know what comes up until people ask the questions, right? So it's really cool to learn it in that kind of classroom environment, and also to see how that inspired the young people also within his community, within his village and tribe. Now, uy, the other people from around the world want to learn this instrument and these songs. Like they also learn to embrace what they have and value it, and so it's cool to see how it kind of sparks, inspiration across all levels, and also to meet other young people interested in it too. I think that's so important to keeping these traditions alive.
And from what I remember, apart from the actual instrument playing, right? You were also talking more about um, their history, and for example, when are these pieces played, for what occasions are these played, and the genealogy of the
Yeah.
masters. So it was also really interesting. And um, how do you find the actual tone? Because when I also witnessed your class, um, I felt it was transcendental. Like when I was listening to the Kutyapi being played, it actually during one of the tech practices, I actually fell asleep because it was so relaxing. and
Yeah.
and during your class, there was a time that I felt I was transported to North Cotabato. I was actually there. How was your experience in terms of experiencing
The
or
the music
meeting
itself,
the music itself?
it was very meditative because
Mhm.
it's the way we learned it was you repeat it and you repeat it and you just repeat it until you master it, and it's like you're internalizing it. At a certain point, parang we were all joking na, we're gonna parang, like, it's parang LSS now. We can't get the song out of our head. It's just like running throughout our minds. And that's actually the best way to learn, because then you never forget it. It becomes part of your language. And music is a language. So it's literally like learning a language. And I like it too because it's just two strings, right? So it's and it has a specific scale, right? And you're just playing within that scale, and it's like meditation not for me. So I can see why you got so relaxed and you're like,
And actually, Slidey is here watching tonight. He's one of Jaira's classmates,
oh,
and yeah, he also mentioned earlier that what I love about the globalization that's being discussed is that shared humanity is much more valuable than shared commodities. It's not how much you know or how much you can monetarily give to the world, but it's all about how much we can connect to another human from another place. Exactly. And Jaira
yeah.
was talking about that earlier. Um, and actually, so Slidey, maybe you want to comment also about your experience. What I found amusing also was that because most of the students were actually um, professional musicians, right? And a lot of them came from the conservatories of music. So
Yeah.
it was amusing how everyone was trying to find the notes, which note
Oh my gosh,
corresponded
yeah. The
so
first
it
thing I did, I'm
to
guilty
the music.
because the first thing I did when they sent the materials was I annotated it. I was like, "No, I annotated it." And then I
This
was like,
do re mi.
yeah, I put it on the staff, and I was like, which is cool. I think if that's if that's a way of learning for you,
Yes, yes.
then it's good. But I think they were saying like, well, the thing with notation is if you write it ganun na, it's like that's what's written. But I guess that's also where there's similarities in jazz, where sometimes you'll see a lead sheet and you'll see the melody written out, but you don't
Mhm.
always have to play it exactly the same. You kind of have
Mm.
freedom to improvise. So parang there
Mm.
are definite parallels with like the tradition, like jazz tradition, which is kind of like what I studied, and like the oral traditions of a lot of indigenous music. So that sense of parang mentor student, direct, you're passing knowledge directly to your student,
Mhm.
and then there's that mastery, and then there's the freedom. And yeah, that was really cool parallel to see and experience.
Cool. And it took a lot of unlearning. No, parang, no, get out of the the scale. Get out of the scale. Like, and then they were asking everyone to just keep listening to it until you absorb it or you've embodied it
Yeah,
and
parang
memorize, your
internalizing.
heart has memorized it, and then you
Yeah,
play coming from there. Wow.
yeah, really
So
cool.
um how has this your study of Philippine traditional music, or in this case the Maguindanaon Kutyapi, helped you in reclaiming your roots?
I think, I mean, to reclaim one's roots is an ongoing process. I've never been like I learned this. I'm like I've reclaimed my roots. It's more like I guess like a state of being, a state of awareness. Now
Yeah.
you have a place where you came from, right? Just the idea of having roots. You're acknowledging and honoring heritage, and it can be your family, but also in the larger scale collectively. And I mean, I don't come from Maguindanaon. I don't come from these different tribes, but for me, it's part of that collective kind of community as a people. And so for me, it's more of like the honoring of that, and the curiosity and wanting to learn, because it's a different way of learning. And music is so universal. You have to be able to see it from different perspectives. I went to no school, so just like absorbing playing by ear, and then I went to music school, um, which in itself was really cool because I got to learn, notation, music theory, which is one way of organizing music. If you go to different cultures, say India or West Africa, they have their own system. And so for me, it's like I'm studying all these different systems and ways of looking at and languages of music. I should learn my own. And for me, I think Filipinos are very oral tradition. We love to tell stories. We love to make cuento. We're even before the written language, babaybayin, and all that. It's like it's based on the spoken word. So for me, it's like okay, I want to learn in that way too. So, yeah, it's really there's so much more to learn. So I haven't reclaimed it. It's a reclaiming action verb. Yes.
It's a reclaiming. So it's an ongoing process. And as you also mentioned in one interview that music is actually not your passion, but living life fully. So for me, it's like it seems you've come full circle in a way, but not yet. I mean, you mentioned that you went from not having formal training to formal training and to again breaking the
Yeah.
box to learn about
Yeah.
your
I mean,
traditional music, right?
yeah.
So it's so
There
interesting.
there are that's why I like seeing everything interconnected, because just because I'm not doing music or I'm not gigging or recording doesn't mean that I'm not creating and I'm not being creative. I think I see the arts and living and the way we relate to people like as all interconnected. So
Yeah.
um so for me, when I music sometimes can be uh I guess my name, because I go by my name, Jireh Calo, and so people know me as a musician, but Jireh Calo
Mm.
is who I am, and I am not
Yeah.
just a musician. Being a musician is a part of who I am, a very important part of who I am, but I'm also a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. I like to explore, I'm curious, I would always want to try new things. I'm a visual artist. I bike a
Mhm.
lot, I run, I'm an athlete. I just recently got into motorbiking this past
Whoa.
year, and for me, it's like it's all connected. You're kind of like in a flow. You're in a state of being. And for me, that's the common thread. It's like the state of living and a state of being. And that's the same thing as I would do for music, as I would do for something else. So they're all interconnected for me.
Definitely. And see Slidey, I just want to read Slidey's comment connected to our earlier discussion. Well, professional musicians, kasi wala kaming trabaho sa pandemic. But as
Yeah,
someone
we
who
got
was
the job.
learning in a different paradigm than the usual Western play as written or improvise as written, it was more about getting into the state that allows you to play the material. You have to be and not think how to be. Tama, meditative nga talaga. So
Yeah,
just like you were sharing about being in terms of living your life, no, and not being limited to just one label, right? So
right.
it's all interconnected. And Slidey
Definitely.
said, word, oral tradition is very important.
Yeah. It's part of our everyday life. I mean, just when you are making cuento to your family over dinner, that is oral tradition. It doesn't have to be so formalized. I think that's the difference. It's like it can be informal, it can be casual as well, and it doesn't have to be so overcomplicated. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
like ganito lang dapat. This is the way I learned it. and it is the only way to teach it. Because sometimes may attitude na ganyan, and like ganito dapat, where I feel like everyone's different. It doesn't make sense na ganyan lang dapat. Music is for everyone. So, so I think just being open as well, very open.
Mhm. Okay, so you often also introduce yourself as an educator, and you never fail to mention your desire to give back to the Philippines by helping the community in your various capacities. So, what's the most significant lesson or insight that you would like to share with fellow Filipino youth, especially aspiring musicians and artists?
Don't neglect the inner work. I think no matter what path you choose, but especially if you choose to be an artist, there is deep internal processing you got to deal with. That isn't always what's glorified, and it isn't what is always seen, but that is the most essential for it to be a sustainable way of living, because it's depends on what you choose to do. But if you choose a path where you want to when you want to do something long term throughout your life and still love it, there's got to be like a reckoning and reconciling of like your sense of vision, identity, and purpose. And it isn't always concrete. It can adjust, and so it's that constant reevaluating, reassessing yourself, never to just be automated. Because I think, especially in this day where the internet's there, social media's there, algorithms, like you got to be really sharp about where your mind is at, where your heart is at, because it can be very there's like a whole flow of like, if you get into it, it can be easy to like pull away from who you are and who you're meant to be. So I think really doing that work, no matter what path you choose, I encourage you to take the time to do that and be patient and really show yourself grace as well through that.
Wow, don't neglect the inner work and show yourself grace. Wow, word. Sabi pa ni Slidey, word.
Word.
Preach. And really, no, yun talaga. Kasi hindi madali yung pinagdaanan mo, no? Ang galing lang na, and you really embodied that example. So, thank you for inspiring everyone with your journey. And of course, let's invite our audience again to the upcoming courses. So, we were talking
Yeah.
about the Himig ni Nuno courses. Can you tell us more about each
Yeah.
course?
So we're
And
now
how
going on our second year. We actually call it now Himig at Galaw ng Ninuno because we've now added Yakan Pansak, which is a dance. So it's going to be in April 18, 20, and 22nd. You can see all the link application links on the Tao Foundation Facebook page, which is right there on the information below. So if you want to join, just click on the link and apply. And I think deadline is end of this month because for example, if you're taking Kutyapi and Kulintang, you need to order the instruments so that actually be handmade and sent to you, so you can take these classes with the actual instrument, which I think is awesome. I have myself a Kutyapi, and it's different when you're just playing like on a guitar kasi iba yung instrument eh. So I encourage you to share it to people who you think would be interested in learning this. We have people from all over the world, Filipinos, Canada, US, here. So just also check the time zones if it works for you. And basta, all the information is there on the Facebook page. So April 18th to the 22nd, deadline is end of this month to apply. So go apply and share.
And there's limited slots, diba? And they have to go through an audition process.
Yeah.
So the master will decide if they will be given the chance to learn under
I think
them.
we're pretty open with like even if you're not a musician, you can still apply. I think it's important that just like to know your reasons for joining. So part of the application is a video of you playing or dancing an instrument, and then interview questions of sharing your reasons why you want to learn. Which I think I'm sure you have reasons why you'd want to learn. So just sharing that. Also, we get to know our students. So yeah, we because when you take the classes, it's really you build those community, you build those relationships. So that's an important part of it. So yeah, it's fun.
And
I
and
encourage you to apply.
and usually there's two schedules, no, one for in the morning and one in the evening to
Yeah,
accommodate those from other time zones.
yeah. So we
Yay.
usually offer two classes. So just check which one works for you. We usually have morning and evening.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, just double check your time zone if you're not in the Philippines.
So these courses are organized by the Tao Foundation and led by Dr. Grace Nono, and Jaira is one of the organizers, no, for um this batch, or actually since last year, no.
Yeah, we're kind of like the core. There's like a core team, and it's not. It's great. It's a bunch of other volunteers as well. So,
Mhm.
and if you're
Very
part of
cool.
this and you're a student and you're interested in also joining the cause and being part, there's
Mhm.
also that opportunity.
Yay! So it's not limited to professional musicians. So
No,
anyone,
we get really interesting applications.
really, what's the most interesting application you've received so far?
We have I think someone is writing a book on the on the Yakan Pansak, I think. So we have authors, we have,
Mhm, mhm.
but it's I think it's really important that you still go through the class and still like learn the
Yes.
songs and the music and the dance, because that's
Cool.
the focus of these courses.
And this is also a unique opportunity because this is not offered in other schools. So it's really specially organized with the masters themselves.
Yeah, and hopefully
Wow.
long term we get to feature more classes from Luzon,
Mhm.
Visayas, and Mindanao. So it's an ongoing work, and this is our second year doing it. So we hope that it continues to grow.
All right. And of course, for those who want to get in touch with Jaira and to check out her music, if it's your first time to meet Jaira, so I highly recommend all her you checking out all her sites because I really had a great time listening to all her music. So this is your link tree, tama ba?
Yeah, Linktree has my Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube. I have a poetry blog and my Facebook page. So yeah, you can just check those out. I'm also on Spotify and all streaming platforms. So if you want to listen to the music I release, it's on all streaming platforms.
Wow, galing. Oh, Marhom is here. Hello, Marhom from Cotabato.
Hello.
And watching here, stay healthy. Likewise. Nag-comment pala si Slidey kanina, ang hassle ng dogmatism. As Chef Gusteau from Ratatouille said, anyone can cook.
Yep, anyone who wants to learn can learn.
All right. Sige, so final word for everyone who's watching tonight. After everything we've discussed tonight, what would you like the audience
One
to
word,
to take
or
away?
maybe one phrase. Stay
Mhm.
curious.
Stay
Stay
curious.
curious. Yeah.
I love
I
that,
think
definitely.
curiosity is a lot more sustainable than passion. Because if passion sometimes like I'll always be inspired, but like I feel like curiosity, there's always something new to learn. There's always something you don't already know. So I feel like yeah, stay curious.
Parang mas mabigat yung energy ng passion, no? Parang curiosity is more like magical,
Because there
whimsical.
are times we don't feel passionate about what we do. There are times we get tired. The pandemic has definitely challenged a lot of artists about in this
Mhm.
regard. So I think following what makes you curious, and it enables you to kind of open up to all these other possibilities, other things you might not realize you're actually into.
Mhm.
So for me, I think that's my motto, ongoing motto.
Stay curious. So definitely. And one, can we flash the posters one last time for everyone who's watching? So please do check out the Facebook page also of Tao Foundation, so you will get the details and the links for registration. And all
Is that
right.
a cricket? I can hear the background night evening
Yep.
song. Oh, sarap!
We have crickets here in Alfonso.
You got your own nature's music. All right. Do that.
Yay. So
Thank you,
thank you so
Eileen.
much,
Thank you so
Jaira,
much.
for your time and for saying yes to our
Of course,
invitation.
I'm honored. Thank you for letting me share and for your very thoughtful questions. You
No,
did your research.
no, it was definitely fun preparing for this, and it was such an honor for me to feature your journey, and I love how you highlighted the importance of inner work, and how you've been encouraging people to really go for what they want by your example, and in the lyrics of Dugong Maharlika, it clearly really it's like an anthem song. So thank you so much for inspiring everyone to really just do it and stay curious, like you said. All right.
Thank you.
So to everyone who's watching us tonight, thank you so much, and hope to see you again next week for Creating Space. Once again, I'm Andrea, and we've been with our
Jara.
special guest, Jireh Calo. Stay safe, everyone, and good evening.
Bye.